like to start with actually giving you a little questionnaire. So basically, one second. Oh, no, not that one. Can you see?
Absolutely.
Absolutely, okay. So, obviously, first of all, my name is Lelde. So I'm going to be the first speaker today, and I will explain you a little bit more about technology. And as Armand already said, why are we here? So, I mean, I would like to start to telling you a little bit about myself and why am I here today. So basically, I've been following this project, Skyway, of course. That's why we are here for like 1 year now. And it's been very exciting. And my background has nothing to do with technology, which is a bit paradox. But I have a film background, so in film studies. And why I joined this project, because I have noticed that when we see science fiction films, everything that we see, it actually comes true after some time. I'm sure you can somehow agree with me on this. So, for example, I mean, I live in London at the moment, and I've noticed that it's very hard to get to work on time, even though we have kind of great public transport and it's underground, but still, like they do break down, and it's unhealthy, and like we have 8 million people living in a capital, which means that traveling can be kind of congested, too many cars, too many people, and buses are too slow. And I'm sure you can somehow agree with me, and I'm sure you've been in a similar situations where you just are stuck and you can't do anything, and you're late for your meetings, for your work, maybe your interviews, or maybe something even more important. So obviously you probably have felt similar like I have, that it's time for a change. I mean, maybe you have seen these videos on like YouTube from like Vietnam and China, where they literally squeeze people on a train because like capitals are overpopulated, and like there's more people than public transport can actually take in, which means there's like massive issue. And maybe you can agree with me that there are quite a few major global problems we are facing right now, which are, for example, spread of the diseases, climate change, lack of energy, increasing global population, international terrorism, poverty, lack of hunger, and drinking water. But the question is, maybe you can answer this to yourself. Why? Why are we having these issues? Well, I think the answer is pretty straightforward. It's because there's too many people. Although, if you think about it, planet Earth has enough for everyone, but yet it's not accessible. So what happens? For example, like there's so much space out there, like we have so much land, but people tend to move to capitals because there's no jobs in the countryside, right? So as more people are moving into the capitals or to some populated areas, people are increasing, which means that hence we have these issues, because there is enough for everyone. It's just we need to change the way we commute and the way we see the world. Hence, I think the public transport and transportation systems in general have to change, because like everything around us are changing. So we need to change everything around us, because as we live in the 21st century at the moment. So to address this issue, I would like to take you back so we can track down where this issue started. For example, in the 18th century, energy included animal and human labor. The land was nourished enough to sustain it because we didn't have too many roads and we didn't have too many cars. Can you not guys see my slides?
No, actually, so
Okay, because I can see.
You see again your slide.
I can see my slides, guys.
So
yes.
Okay. So sorry for that. So let's just
Maybe you need to change me as a presenter or something. No.
Yeah, probably. You are organizer and presenter.
And you cannot see my slides.
Nope.
Okay, can you see my screen now?
Yes. Now it's working.
Okay. Okay, I'm just gonna go slides back. Okay, so we stayed on 18th century. So in the 18th century, the energy sources were animal and human labor based, right? We had boats and like just minimal roads. But then as the transportation started to increase, obviously people had to travel so they can trade. So later in the 19th century, as the technology developed, we started to have like from horses and oxes, we moved to like steam engines, and then later on we had already the rail as we see it today. And obviously transportation has to change, so the old systems are failing, and it's evident. So for example, as you know today, like we're surrounded by concrete jungle, and we don't have enough parks, and we don't have enough roads for cyclists, and the world is stuffed with like planes and cars and other transportation systems, but they're ineffective because, as you probably know, that we're fast approaching post-petroleum era, which means that we don't have enough energy resources to sustain the life we have at the moment, because like you probably know that 80% of the world's population are relying on fossil fuels, but it took approximately 150 million years for them to create and for us to able to burn them as coal. But for us it took only a couple of hundreds to just burn it down, which means that if the energy sources are changing, we have to change the way we think and the way we commute and transport cargoes, cars, planes, etc. And obviously it's all about being green, because to be fair, like, okay, you're gonna say that there are a lot of inventions, a lot of technologies, and the world is slowly changing. It's true, but from my research, obviously you can do your homework yourselves. You don't have to listen to everything I say, but what I have noticed that the technology is becoming smarter. Doesn't mean it becomes greener, because it's all about being green and it's all about saving planet. Because if we harm the environment, in the end of the day, we're harming ourselves. So, but someone already knew this a few decades ago. And this someone is Professor Anatoly Yunitsky. He is the CEO of the Skyway, scientist, mentor, and businessman. He is an author and chief designer of string technology, director of 2 projects of the United Nations Organization, member of the USSR Cosmonautic Federation, author over 114 inventions, books, and over 200 scientific papers. Obviously, you can check this all on his website. I'm going to type it in after the webinar, so you can go and check this all yourselves, so you don't have to believe everything that I'm saying. But it's true, like, he is a genius. I would say he's someone like Steve Jobs, but in transportation field. Why am I saying this? Because I think that what he imagined is just amazing. Because, I mean, for example, if you drive a car, and if you own a car, like you probably know that it saves, for example, I don't drive, so I might get the numbers wrong, but for, let's say, 100 kilometers, like let's say you spend X amount of fuel, right? So let's say it's 10 liters, because obviously it's due to CX, which is, I think, it's the aerodynamics. So basically, for a car not to turn around and for you not to have accident, it has to spend energy to keep it on the ground. So let's say when you have a plane, right, the aerodynamic fields goes around everywhere because it's on the air. So what if we have something in the middle? Let's say it's not completely in the air, so it's visible, but it's not on the ground. So we don't affect pedestrians, the cars, and we just save energy. Isn't that genius? If you think about it, right? How many people die on the roads, like annually? I think I checked the numbers, and it was around 150 million people have car accidents on the roads. And I think quite a few of them die or become cripples. So when you have something that doesn't interfere with other transport systems or even pedestrians, like you, I think it's amazing because it just works out so well. So what is Skyway? It looks like this, and it looks amazing, I would say. I mean, I think it's pretty genius. Maybe it's kind of hard for you to understand it for the moment, but let me just take you a little bit further so you can understand a little bit more about this technology. So there are three types of this transportation, which is fast-speed trains, public transport, and cargo. For example, the fast-speed trains will take you from, let's say, city to a city, or country to a country, or even continent to a different continent. I think it's pretty amazing because if you think about it, like the fastest transport system we have at the moment are planes, but you spend so much time driving to the airport, then you need to decide where you're going to leave your car. If you don't have a car, then you need to ask someone to take you, like your mom or your friends, or even you have to spend money to go into the airport. Then you need to spend time to check in, and only then you can board on the plane. And only then when you get to the airport, it takes you at least an hour to get outside the airport. I think it's just basically like we are wasting our time. So if you have a train, you don't have to do all these processes, which means that you're traveling comfortably, quick, and you don't spend so much time and effort and even money, because plane tickets can be pretty expensive like these days. So this train, the fast-speed train, is going to be able to take up to 500 people at a time, and will have enough energy to travel for 10,000 kilometers. And the next one, I think it's public transport, and the maximum speed is going to go, it's going to be 150 kilometers per hour, which means that it will be an inner city transport, and you will be able to get on time everywhere, because you won't have to get into traffic jams. And there's going to be more space for parks, for playgrounds, for people to walk, and cyclists. And the last but not least exciting is cargo. Cargo will be able to access remote locations, like, for example, some coal mines, iron mines, and just places that there is natural resources, but there isn't a system so far that could access that particular location without harming the nature. Why I'm saying this, for example, in Bolivia, they have this volcano, El Mutun. You can write this down, also you can check it out. It's in Bolivia, and they have an iron mine, but it's inaccessible because it's in the middle of nowhere. So if a normal transportation, like an average transportation as we see today, would go there and take the iron out, they would have to damage nature. So they cannot do it. And like there are so many places in the world that there is something that people could potentially benefit, but it's inaccessible. So what are the benefits? So obviously it's the capital expenditure decreases and the reduction of operating costs. As I already mentioned, access to new and remote territories, islands, mountains, and seashells. Reduction of repair and work costs. And if we can compare, maybe you can see, I'm going to take this a little bit off, but as you can see here, if you compare Skyway to, I don't know, like aircrafts and magnetic levitation trains that, for example, Japan and China has, or just like the TGV in France, which is the high-speed rail, it actually, Skyway saves a hell of a lot more money. Why am I saying this? Because I'm not going into numbers too deep, but if you think about how much money people spend on like irrelevant things, for example, now in London, governments are willing to put in infrastructure by 2020 £4 billion. But what they're doing, like they're just gonna upgrade the already existing systems, and that's highly ineffective because if you imagine how many people are in crisis in the world and someone is just spending useless money onto improving something that should be just changed instead of, I don't know, improved, I think it's kind of BS a little bit, to be fair. So, and also at the beginning, obviously you probably are thinking, but how this is going to work if it's green, because you're going to still use fuel. Yes, you will use still fuel, but just for the first stage. And after some time, we're going to be able to switch to wind and solar power. And just to maybe give you a small example of why it's highly effective and how it's going to save energy, I can just give you like an example. Imagine in your house right now, you have the world's fastest car, which is Bugatti Veyron. Bugatti Veyron potentially can take up to 432 kilometers per hour, but it spends a hell of a lot of energy because of the friction, as I explained you before. And actually, Unitsky has calculated that if you compare Skyway with Bugatti Veyron, which is the world's fastest car at the moment, you save exactly 12 times more energy. I think it's pretty amazing, but you can still go with the same speed, and you can go anywhere, really. And why I love this project also is that, for me, I don't like to live in the capital because it's full of smog. There's too many people here. It's just hard to breathe, and it's hectic, and there's too many people. I'm sure you've been in a city that instead of making you happy, it makes you anxious because you just feel confused and you don't feel happy because it's just too much of everything. So why I'm saying this, my dream is to live somewhere outside the capital, in maybe somewhere where I can breathe the fresh air and I don't have to think about the noise. But then again, I think again, but like, I'm not willing to travel to work for 5 hours, but if I have the right transport, I can potentially travel to work in no time, but I can still live far away and enjoy the nature, right? It makes sense. So I think it's so amazing. For example, continuing about the benefits of the Skyway, it will also be anti-ice and glaciation, as well as snowdrifts, fogs, dust, and sandstorms. Why? Because you probably know that in those places in the world where they have earthquakes, houses are built on anti-levitation structures, so when the earthquake hits, it doesn't break down the house. So here we can have very similar structure, but that's another story for like a different webinar, so stay tuned if you want to know more about this matter, because I think it's pretty exciting. Yeah, so I mean, if you imagine, I don't know, like here in England, if there's a snow, which is like 2 centimeters, which is not actually snow, then the normal rail does stop working, so people don't get to work. So if you have something that could be lifted up, imagine what it could possibly do. I don't know, maybe you have come across this, but this is Masdar. Masdar is in Dubai. Why am I showing this to you? It's because I think it's pretty cool what they have done with the income they have generated from oil. So all the money like they generated from oil business, they put into the city. So this is Masdar, and it's built on the concept called One Planet Living. You can write this down also because I think it's pretty exciting. What they have done, they made like the world's first post-petroleum city, and it's 100% safe, self-sustainable, which means that all the energy comes from solar panels. And if they're doing that, even though they're always being way up front us, but you have to think about in their country, it was just sand, so they built it all from scratch. So if they're getting ready for something like this, which is post-oil era, I think it's kind of like a call for us to wake up also and just change the way we travel and change like the mindset, how we think about energy and what is energy. Energy potentially is ability to do work. But if we're not going to think about saving energy now, then, well, technically we won't sustain. Because there has been research done that we're spending 30% more energy annually than actually Earth can reproduce, which means that we need to change the way we gain energy and the resources, right? It makes sense. And there's also research done. If everyone would live like an average American, by 2020, we would need 5 planets to sustain the life we have today. So we Europeans are a bit more modest, but still, I think it's a call for us to kind of change the way we see the world. And, well, here's a quote. You never change things by fighting the existing reality, but to change something, build a new model that makes the existing model obsolete. Buckminster Fuller is an entrepreneur and philanthropist. What he's saying here is that basically people should stop upgrading things. We just have to change the things they are completely. So yeah, I mean, if you want to sustain like the life we see on Earth today, I think we need to kind of change the way we travel, because look, technology is everything, but the most, I think, energy taking devices are transportation, because we always have to move around. Everything is about movement. And I know it maybe sounds a bit crazy, but Peter Diamandis, I'm a huge fan of him. You can write his name down also. He's a great entrepreneur. What he said that basically the day before something is a breakthrough, it's a crazy idea. It sounds a bit crazy, but everything that at some point sounded crazy made it, and it changed the world. So now I would like to move you on to my colleague Mila. She will tell you a little bit more about what this all is about. So Mila, on to you.
Thank you, Elda. If you can pass me a screen so I can share with the rest of the people.
Okay, I'm just gonna change you as a presenter. 1 second. Yep. Can you share your screen now?
Yeah.
Okay.
Can you see my screen?
Yep.
Yes, we do.
Okay.
You just need to maximize it.
Can you see me as well?
No, we can't see you. I don't know why.
Let's do it one more time. Can you see me now?
No.
Right, it says that people can see me. I'm a presenter. Can you make me organizer? Would that make any difference?
I'm trying to do it, yeah. So can you try now?
Brought fire into caves. This was the first technology. Our ancestors began to heat up their dwellings with fire and cook meat on coals. Many of them didn't live to the age of 20 and died from lung cancer. The air in the caves was filled with unbearable smog. What has changed since then? Mankind has improved technologically, and the number of fires has increased considerably. These fires now burn in car engines, diesel locomotives, motor ships, and airplanes, in heating furnaces, in atomic power stations, in boiler rooms, and in factories. A number of the harmful and poisonous elements in emissions have become considerably more abundant in comparison to those primitive fires. Thanks to surface and air transportation, we are breathing air, drinking water, and eating food products that contain a bit less than half of the components of the periodic table of elements: nitric oxide, carbon, sulfur, aldehyde, benzopyrene, soot, mercury, arsenic, lead, chlorine, polynuclear hydrocarbon, and radioactive isotopes. The list of these scary names can go on forever. It is precisely this atmospheric cocktail that we get whenever we go to the park to breathe the fresh air. The increasing number of motor vehicles has caused the concentration of these harmful substances to become lethal. There's also no point in forgetting about aviation. Each launch of a heavy rocket, as well as every flight of a multi-engined aircraft, creates a hole in the ozone layer that is comparable in size with the area of a European country. By the end of the century, transportation will have the capability of killing more than 150 million people in accidents and disasters, and causing over 1.5 billion people to become invalids and cripples. How to avoid making this monstrous sacrifice? How to keep our planet green and not ash gray? Ride horses? Walk? Hey, Marty McFly, could you lend us, the planet's current inhabitants, 7 billion hoverboards from your past future? Indeed, effective transport has already been developed by the scientist Anatoly Yunitsky. This genius of an engineer invented the ideal transport in every sense of the word. It's called the Rail Skyway. More than 30 years and several hundreds of millions of dollars have already been invested in order to bring Yunitsky's project to life. What do you envision to be the transport of the future? Just imagine a lightweight train or a sports car with steel wheels, which is situated on open-work elevated rails. Inside the rails, tensioned wires are stretched with the strength of hundreds of tons. Due to the ideal evenness of the track and the super aerodynamics of the rolling stock, it is capable of reaching speeds of up to 500 kilometers per hour. The cost of the trip to you will be 7 times cheaper than that of a conventional train. The level of safety will be 2,000 times higher than traveling by automobile, and a trip will require 10 times less electrical energy or fuel. And that's not the whole story. The tensioned wire rails are mounted onto lightweight but exceptionally durable supports that make it possible to save the layer of fertile soil, which is currently located under highways and railways, from destruction, an area 4 times greater in size than the total territory of Great Britain. This soil will remain alive. It will breathe, and the green plants growing on it will produce sufficient oxygen for billions of people to breathe. In order to implement this form of transport all around the world, it must be compared with equivalent amounts that have already been spent, which today is approximately the same cost as 2 or 3 football players or 1 or 2 paintings by not even the most famous of impressionists. And it is possible to make this a reality with only public funding. This is precisely the type of transport that is needed by you and me. And
Okay, guys, so I hope Mila is back. Okay, Mila, so we see your screen. Can you please check your microphone? Microphone?
Can you hear me?
Yes? Cool.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Excellent.
I hear
And
you.
can you see my screen as well?
Yes, we see your screen as well. So perfect. We
Perfect.
can continue.
Yeah, I'm very sorry for the slight delay. Just restarted my webinar room, and then hopefully everything's going to be fine from now on. Let's begin. I will talk about investment and capitalization part, but before doing this, I also introduce myself. My name is Mila, and I live in London now for 7 years. My background is business, sales, and marketing. I've been there for 5 years, and I'm very passionate about investment. So my beliefs are very simple. I do really think that if you're not going to look after your future, nobody else will. So it's very important to secure your future. It's very important to know what you do and have a plan. And if you don't know what's going to happen in 5 or 10 or 30 years, how would you plan it in the first place? So that's why today I want to cover investment and capitalization part within the Skyway project. So let's start with investment. So what is investment? It's actually pretty simple. Investment means putting the money into something which is work for you. There are many ways we can go about making investment. It could be stocks, bonds, mutual funds, alternative investment. It could be bank investment, real estate, or even started your own business. All these tools available for everybody in order to start investing. However, each of these tools can have negative and positive sides. The point is, it doesn't really matter what tools you choose in order to become an investor. The very important is to understand your goal is to put the money works for you, not opposite. So even though it's a very simple idea, start investing, this is the most important concept for you to understand. But before going further and explain these types of investment, I want you to think about why would the people want to invest in the first place. Obviously, everybody wants to have more money. It's pretty easy to understand that everybody wants to have a personal freedom, a sense of security, and simply afford the things they would love to have in their life. However, nowadays, investment becomes more as a necessity. If you think 30 or 50 years ago, the people had much more better pensions plan, they have security. Now, if you have a look at the statistics, UK average pension is £156 per week. Let's think about if you're retired and you earn £156 per week, what you can possibly afford for this money. So you will earn such a small money when you're retired, even though I'm talking about not starting working for the 5 years or 10. This is statistics we're taking an average person who work in the same job for like 30 years or more. So for me, it's shocking. I don't want to end up having such a little money when I retired. I want to have freedom. I want to buy the things I want in life. I want to be secure. And at the same time, it's a very good time now because people become more aware. We're all familiar with Robert Kiyosaki, with Peter Lynch, even Tony Robinson. Everybody starts talking about people. You do need to look after yourself. You do need to find the ways how to multiply your income. And investment, this is the tool. It's a necessity nowadays. Generally speaking, investors, they have a few factors which they consider when they put the money on one of the tools. It has to be safe. They need to understand return on a capital, and also they need to consider the current income. Of course, 75 years old lady would invest less than a 35 years old businessman with his salary at 30K plus. So therefore, it's very important to understand your current situation, what you can afford and what you cannot afford. Investment financial position is really effect on the decision you make. Peter Lynch, one of the greatest investors all the time, he said once that the key organ for investing is the stomach, not the brain, which means everybody needs to know how much risk you can take in order to see your investment. I already mentioned that there are many ways to invest the money. Of course, to decide which investment vehicles to use, you need to know a little bit about every single tool. But today, on today's webinar, I don't want to go a bit more detail. I just wanted to give you, I guess, the main picture, why we need to invest and so on. So as you can see from the screen, I will talk about the investments which are on the right-hand side. I guess the most common, it's a bank deposit, forex, and real estate. If you, for example, have £500 now and you go to the bank, you will ask them what it can do for you. Can you invest this money into something? More likely, they will come with an ISA account, which is something around 4%, 4 to 12%, depends what terms and conditions you have. Some of them, they could be locked account, some of them can be open account. So this is all what you're going to get. Forex. Forex is extremely risky investment. A statistic shown around 97% of people, they fail at Forex because they simply don't know the right strategy, or they don't take the right risk, or they they're scared, or they're too risky. So there are different reasons why, but the statistics show that 97% of people have failed. For me, this is a huge number. Real estate. Of course, you cannot start the real estate business until you have some lump sum, or you have other investors who love to invest. So therefore, living here in London, for example, real estate is a very popular business, but at the same time, you also need to understand what strategy to use, what property to buy, what statistics to use, and etc. So therefore, each of these tools has, as I said before, on pluses and minuses. Let's talk about Skyway investment. We choose for investment crowdfunding, which means it's equity-based investing, which means that users, or us, people, crowd, we invest in a business and we receive shares in return. So investors, they become shareholders of the business and they can benefit from its dividends and from its profit. We're all familiar with these companies. For example, Boeing. From 1975 to 1995, the stock price has increased from $1.64 to $67, which is 40 times greater. Similar with Microsoft. From 1985 to 1995, the stock price has increased from $1.93 to $19.50. It's 46.8 times greater. So this is you're going to say, it's very nice stories, but we are now Microsoft already established company, Boeing as well. So this is the thing, there are such lots of companies exist. Not everybody will provide you such a great return, but if you do your research, if you know the niche market, then you would be able to make the right choices. if you ask the people who invested in a time when the Microsoft exists or Coca-Cola, they're probably going to tell you that, well, they didn't even know about these companies. They consider this as a risky investment. Maybe somebody advised them, or maybe they had a friend or family who advised them to invest. But on that time, because company was established, it also was a risky investment, right? Let's have a look on the Skyway investment plan. So it consists from 15 stages, as you can see on the screen. We are on the stage number 4. We already have 7 million collected money. So company have a goal or the target to reach the IPO, which is initial public offering, by 2017. And we need to collect 300 million, which is, to be fair, quite reasonable for this revolutionary project. So as you can see from this table, 2015 and 2016, we already passed the stage of engineering, well, technology development, engineering, and now we are in the building and construction stage. What is your return? If you go to Skyway Invest Group today, you will see this table, the one I share with you on my screen, where you can have a look how much money you need to invest and what is your return. So let's say if you invested at £1,000, the share price that you will receive shares in a package. For each package, there's going to be a different amount of shares, and you can see how much money you can make investing on a certain package. You can ask more questions after the webinar just to explain where from you can see all these figures. But just for you to understand that we already have some calculations which are proven calculation that after a company goes to IPO, one share estimated cost will be £1. So therefore, depending on how much money you invest today, you will receive certain amount of shares, which will have projected profit in 2017, a certain amount of money. So that's how it works with the Skyway. Just to summarize the 5 main reasons to invest. The first one is global company ownership, which means you will become one of the owners of the world's largest transport corporation. You would have a possibility and ability to change the world. As my colleague Lauda said, there is lots of problems exist nowadays, and therefore this company will help you and will help everybody. Will help the world to change to the better place. Intellectual property rights. The company owns exclusive rights to technology, and cost of this technology is 250 billion, according to the independent experts. It's also very profitable investment. As I mentioned before, after IPO, public price will be £1 per share. And lifelong dividends, which means that after project is really complete, you can have either lump sum of money or you can have dividends. But it's not just, we're not talking about the dividends for the next 5 or 10 years. The project is huge, it's global. So the dividends will be a lifelong. You can pass to your children, to your grandchildren, and everything we have written in the documents. So you can also have a look and ask a bit more details to the person who introduced you to this webinar today. I guess that's pretty much all from my side. What I want to add is we're not here to, I guess, advise you go straight away to invest. You need to also understand that you need to have enough information for you to make the right decision. So we all came to know in the Skyway a year ago, and I can tell you what you guys have at the moment. It's just amazing. On the time when we started to understand the company, we have such a little information about the company, but now the more you learn, now we have so many webinars, lots of speakers. We already have quite a few investors, very high investors, who invest their money, their time, their reputation on this project. So, of course, you need to investigate, you need to know a bit more details, you need to learn. But whatever decision you make, if you need any help or support, we are here for you. I know it's not sound that simple, but at the same time, the more you will learn, you have more questions. So it's good to have questions, and we're here to help you and get the answers. I guess we have finished for today with the webinar. but at the same time, we can spend a few minutes here in chat. If you have any questions, you can ask either myself or Lelde or Armand, and we can take it from there. For me, it's all done. My part, investing part. Hope I gave you some tips. We're also planning to have more webinars in the future, so we will definitely keep you updated on this. Thank you very much, guys, and I will pass it to Armand.